As you can see, the topic of the rights and freedoms of Turkmenistan citizens is very valuable, but didn't attract too much attention today, unfortunately. Still, we're doing our best to bring to the attention of UN and all the representatives of the UNOC office and different permanent missions and NGOs the atrocious violations of human rights and freedoms happening in Turkmenistan. The arrival of the new young president, son of the previous president, was given some hopes for a more open and respectful society, given the president's experience in working abroad, namely in Russia and Switzerland. But a very restrictive society has seen even more restrictions introduced, particularly targeting women. Some beauty procedures have been banned. Women were prohibited from sitting in the front seats of the cars. The internet barely exists in the country, given access uniquely to the censored websites. The news broadcasted on the TV nourish the cult of authority and do not give access to real-world information. Independent and international media do not exist, and activists are severely persecuted. Namely, for example, Tazegül Recepova, a doctor gynecologist that has been prohibited the right to work in the country for openly relaying the true situation. Galina Kucherenko, who has been persecuted for her activism in protecting errant animals, and many more cases, some of which you will hear today from our representatives, that constitute a strong violation of human rights, right to the freedom of expression, to free assembly, and all the rights of free citizens. So without hesitation, I'm going to give the floor to Ms. Sofia Kiryazova, who is going to talk about gender-based violences in Turkmenistan. Please, Sofia, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sofia Karizova. I will be representing the organization Rights and Freedoms of Turkmenistan Citizens. Turkmenistan remains a country where there is constant violation of women's rights. Considering the patriarchal views of the country's leadership, women are believed to only be responsible for household chores and raising children. Everything else is the prerogative of men. Despite the presence of women in the government, they do not have the opportunity to make independent decisions. Women in society. According to the law, the state guarantees women and men of marriageable age, as established by Turkmenistan's legislation, an equal right to form a family. Currently, the state creates obstacles for girls who want to marry a foreign citizen. There are not many official divorces in Turkmenistan. Despite the fact that polygamy is practiced in the country, a man is officially married only once. In the event of divorce, both official and unofficial, the house remains with the woman and her children. Although the state guarantees for ensuring equal rights and equal opportunities for women and men, in reality, women are not guaranteed protection of their rights. In Turkmenistan, police officers and special forces can conduct forced gynecological examinations of young girls to determine the presence of the hymen. Women who drive cars are also discriminated against in Turkmenistan. The state also does not encourage the existence. Is everything okay with the sound?
No, Diana, please hold a second. Can you try to?
I think it's the same. No? Okay. Women who drive cars are also discriminated against in Turkmenistan. The state also does not encourage the existence of companies whose leader is a woman who is not of Turkmen nationality. If such a company already exists, the leader will be forced to give up their position and the company will be forced to close. Currently, complained by a woman whose company was forcibly closed, property confiscated, and who was forced to emigrate due to persecution from the authorities, is under consideration by CEDAW. In Turkmenistan, women with non-Turkmen surnames are facing mass discrimination, and there are almost none left in budget organizations. There are no non-Turkmen women in the government of Turkmenistan, and there are also no non-Turkmen women in leadership positions in budget organizations. In Turkmenistan, Turkmen women do hold leadership positions, with the chairperson of the country's parliament being a woman. However, in practice, these women only create the appearance of women's participation in government, and they cannot make any decisions. Sexual and domestic violence, coercion to cohabit in Turkmenistan. Often in cases of domestic violence, women do not turn to the law enforcement agencies. Such statements are not properly considered. Law enforcement officers believe that all problems of this kind should be resolved exclusively between spouses. In the country, there is a flourishing of coercion to cohabit by the so-called curators from the Ministry of National Security, attached to every budget institution in Turkmenistan. This is especially true for the healthcare system. Cases of sexual violence against girls with sexual experience have become more frequent. Such violence is often committed by close relatives of the President of Turkmenistan. Final remarks: Turkmenistan is obligated to recognize and uphold gender equality. Women have the right to freely choose their partners. It is necessary to stop forcing women who do not have someone to protect them from such violations to cohabit. The country is obliged to respect the rights of female prisoners. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sophia, to add to
Corina, can you hear us?
I can hear you well.
Yes, this is a video conferencing technician. May I ask you please all the participants to mute their microphone when they are not speaking, please?
Our microphone. Hello? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Sophia, to what has just been said. We got some information from trusted sources about the fact that there were raids conducted in the banks, for example, where female workers were checked for wearing underpants. So such histories are not unique, and unfortunately, relaying information about such histories is extremely difficult, considering that, as
the technician is coming to fix the issue.
Talked.
Hold on.
And said, there is no access to free internet. The internet is extremely slow. Sometimes sending a picture that is just 2 megabytes is taking hours. So in this regard, access to information is extremely important and crucial. And also, this is also why we believe the importance of such side events within UN is undeniable. So with that, I would like to give the floor to Diana Serapran, please. Diana, you can unmute your microphone and start talking. Diana, you have the floor.
Can you hear me now? Hello, everyone. My name is Diana Siryabranyuk. I would like to talk about the penitentiary system of Turkmenistan. As you might know, Turkmenistan is one of the most repressive countries in the world. So, one where the ordinary citizens are faced with violation of their right on daily basis. Therefore, when it comes to prisoners and their right, so we can say that prisoners have no right at all. To start with, in Turkmenistan, there is no website for the Ministry of Interior Affairs. There is no mention, not to mention any form of government provided digital information in regard to the state's penitentiary system. If you were an average citizen and you needed to look up a specific prison where your relative or loved one is located, you would not be able to do it through internet. Human rights organizations and foreign governments require Turkmenistan to provide information on the forcibly disappeared citizens of Turkmenistan. Among them are those who disappeared back in 2002, charged under the case of so-called terroristic attempt on Saparmurat Niyazov. More than 20 years have passed and still no official information whether they are alive or not. Violations of rights of detainees begin with a temporary detention center in Ashgabat. It's located on Jitnikov Street. Citizens who are in jail and want to inform their loved ones about their detention must pay the security guard on duty for a phone call. Although in May 2019, the Ministry of Communication adopted a decree of terrification of call for prisoners. In case of a prisoner is sick, treatment can only be provided after a bribe. In order to stay in medical part of the correctional colony, a bribe might also be given. Even though by law, everything is supposed to be provided free of charge. So in Turkmenistan, a prisoner is the subject of both psychological and physical violence upon arriving on the correctional facility. Everything in correctional institution must be paid for. If a prisoner does not have well-off relatives, they cannot avoid violence and hunger. Turkmenistan prisons are very poorly equipped with both food and medication. Within the penitentiary system of the country, the most severe prison is Avadan-Tepe concentration camp. The Avadan-Tepe prison was built away from settlements. According to sources, the colonial buildings are not visible as they are surrounded by hand dunes along the entire perimeter. The entire territory is patrolled by military helicopters. 20 kilometers before entering the territory, there is a large armed post with an armed personnel carrier. Only prison employees, prosecutor, Minister of National Security, and the Minister of Internal Affairs supervising this prison are allowed to enter the territory of Avadan-Tepe. According to sources, officers of the Minister of Internal Affairs are brought there to work and taken away on a special bus. Entry to the colony is limited by 3 more checkpoints. The first 2 points are metal gates that can be opened wide open, and the third checkpoint, located in front of block number 5. This block is for former officials, is a thick cast metal door approximately 30-40 centimeters thick, which opens from the bottom up. The Avadan-Tepe colony is built in the form of beetle and consists of 9 blocks. Block number 1 is administration of the colony. Block number 2 has no prisoners, it's empty. Prisoners sentenced to life imprisonment were in block number 3. On their ropes it was written Ömürlük in Turkmen language. In English it's for life. They are not allowed visitation right or delivers. The windows of this block are closed with bars, blinds, and the metal sheets so that no one had the opportunity to see who is sitting in this block or hear them. According to the staff, it is strictly forbidden to pronounce the names and surnames of the prisoners in Avadan-Tepe, as this can be dangerous for the state. Block number 4 is intended for the solitary prisoners. These prisoners are also kept in condition of complete isolation without the possibility of contacting not only the outside world, but also the other prisoners in unit. Block number 5 is intended for the former state officials. The cells in this block contain 3 prisoners each. They are assigned numbers. When communication with the colony workers, surnames and names are prohibited. The prisoners do not know who is sitting in the next cell and do not have the opportunity to communicate with them. They are allowed deliveries from time to time from the relatives, but they are not allowed any visitational right. Block number 6 should contain prisoners who need medical assistance and to be transferred to a prisoner hospital in Mari. However, this block does not contain any prisoners and is not used for the intended purpose. It is built solely for the purpose of creating a false image in case of commission is to be allowed to check the prison to show that the sick prisoners who have health problems are separated from everyone else and are waiting to be transferred to a prison hospital. Block number 7 is the working block. A sewing workshop was opened there, in which prisoners from blocks number 8 and block number 9 work. Block number 9 contained prisoners with a changed regime of detention to a particularly strict regime. They are located on the second and third floors of the block. On the ground floor are former law enforcement officers. Block number 9 contained prisoners with a particularly strict regime of detention. Those who have been released complained about the terrible condition of detention. Inmates reported that there are virtually no food for political prisoners from block number 3. The toilet is covered by the curtain made by the prisoners themselves. Showers are available only every 10-20 days. The shower is 3 watering cans for 16 people. Therefore, the ability to take a normal shower is practically absent. Prison food is husked from ground wheat, from which semblance of soup is cooked. If a commission is expected, porridge from rice is given, which the colony administration calls pilaf. There is no heating in the units. In the winter it is very cold, and in the summer it's unbearable heat. There are also problems with the drinking water. Most often it's either absent or rusty and dangerous to drink. Survival rate of the prisoners in Avadan-Tepe is not high, since in such condition it's almost impossible to survive. Female prisoners are subjected to particularly severe prosecutions. Since the arrival of investigators to the detention center, it must be noted that male investigators begin to violate women's rights. They shout at women and use physical force. There is a constant threat of sexual violence. There have been many cases where investigators forced female detainees to have sexual intercourse with them. This applies to women whose relatives do not have enough finance resources to buy normal condition of detention. If there is no such base, the woman is forced to cohabit with the staff of detention center. As soon as the woman arrives to correctional colony, she is subject to physical violence from prison staff. Women were beaten to such an extent that some had broken jaws and ribs. No medical assistance was provided. Convicts also forced to strip naked upon arrival at the colony and walked around in one dress without underwear until permission was granted for a visit from relatives. There are no hygiene products available. Women use whatever they can find in a detention center or correctional colony during their menstrual periods. In the event that the management or staff of the prison consider that the convict has committed an offense, she is sent to a cold solitary confinement cell with nothing but a concrete floor. While serving time in solitary confinement, all the convict's underwear is also removed. There is also coercion for convicts to cohabit with the chief or the staff of the prison. All women in prison wear black scarves on their heads. In case of menstrual cramps, medication is not provided. Women with cancer are not hospitalized, and medical assistance is not provided. During the COVID-19 pandemic, many female prisoners died due to a complete lack of treatment and provision of oxygen. In rare cases of hospitalization, doctors were afraid to approach and provide any help, as their note takes responsibility for the death of the prisoner. In cases where convicts developed cough, they were immediately transferred to a separate barracks. The majority of them died. It is also necessary to know that the absence of both drinking water and water for hygiene procedures. In case of pregnancy, before giving birth, the convict is brought to a nearby maternity hospital under escort. During childbirth, a correctional officer may come into delivery room in his uniform and tackle of woman to deliver a chair. Doctors in 99% of cases, women, are afraid to say something to a law enforcement officer, and this officer allowed to do almost everything. I would also like to attract the attention to the extradition of a young blogger, Farhat Meyman Kuliyev. He was in Turkey, and in his video, he criticized the country's leadership, the president, his family, So he was extradited to Ashgabat in May 19th. Farhat has mentally health condition. Although some of his videos are not ethically or morally good, that's not a reason for murdering or torturing. According to our data, Minister of Foreign Affairs personally handled the issue of extradition. After being extradited, Farhat was placed in a detention center where he was subject to brutal torture. They make him wear a gas mask and release air from it. Metal devices were placed on his tongue and electric current was spread through them. Two individuals beat him in such force that the body turned into a bloody mess. According to our information, he is currently still held. We also received an information that Farhat has multiple fractures, including skull-base fracture. So, and no medical help provided. Thank you. Karina?
Thank you, Diana. You can mute. Thank you very much for your extremely insightful speech. And on this one, I would like to give the floor to Diana Nazaret from the Institute for Human Rights.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So let me start with expressing my gratitude for the audience to participate in the event. And unfortunately, as far as we can see, the topic of Turkmen citizens is not that broadly discussed, even in the walls of UN. And today, me and my colleagues were trying to cover the key problematic areas of the region. And the human rights in Turkmenistan, they remains catastrophic in the context of countries continuous closedness and repressive regime while maintaining the authoritative rule of the Berde Muhammadov's clan. The information presented today by our previous panelists uh, is highly unique and yet it's very limited. Obviously, as in any dictatorship regime, you will not be able to find all the acute information on human rights violations, a part of the state propaganda machine, obviously. Regular internet shutdowns, ban of the most spread social medias, messengers, news websites, as well as very slow internet speed makes it barely impossible to share and provide the accurate information on the basic human rights violations in the country. People inside of the country willing to share their stories literally have to seek for internet connection and even the simplest VPN services to have a chance to establish any kind of online communication, but it's usually only limited to text messages. As for video or audio call, the internet connection is just not enough. With no ability to form any robust civil society whatsoever, not even ability to share an information, um, our partners in Turkmenistan, they face regular threats to their health and life. Additionally to major pressure from the government and society for revealing an information that in any kind may highlight the government's flaws and destroy a picture perfect image of the country imposed by state propaganda. And what's even more, even after fleeing from Turkmenistan, people refrain from talking about human rights crisis as their families and relatives inside the country will face persecution, blackmailing, and life threats. That's why, in the context of an extremely repressive regime with a large scale crackdown on freedom of speech, today, on behalf of Turkmen citizens, we are revealing the topics of human rights violations of a particular concern. And thus, my input is dedicated to the problem with health and water in the region. Following the sixth SDG, access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene is the most basic human need for health and well-being. And notwithstanding the fact that the main principles of the Turkmenistan Water Code are equal access of population to water, sustainable and rational water use, and integrated water management, thousands of people are suffering from the lack of drinking water. The problem emerged back in 1991 when Turkmenistan gained its independence as it arose both due to geographical and climate conditions as well as poor drinking water network across the country. The lack of water remains the most acute problem faced by the population of Turkmenistan. Citizens simply do not have an access to drinking water. In cities, water supply is systematically being cut off, while in rural areas, there is often no centralized water supply at all. For instance, in the city of Turkmenbashi, drinking water is available only for 2 hours per day. This time is not even enough for people to fill in their small water reservoirs for the upcoming day. People of Turkmenistan have to buy bottled water in a huge amount, but only those few with a higher income can afford so-called luxury. The majority of population simply cannot manage such expenses and they face everyday struggle to get enough drinking water for their families. The problem with water shortages in the country with a hot and arid climate remains unresolved for decades, making it one of the most critical issues in the region. Moreover, the quality of water is extremely low, and the special attention home stop. Um, Moreover, the more terrifying thing that can be found in the water of in Turkmenistan is the virus of hepatitis. It is highly spread in the country. As the water of Turkmenistan is infected, basically each second citizen has suffered from this disease. Obviously, the government does not reveal any information about the problem to the public, nor it warns the consumers about the possible threat to their health. Daily consumption of the infected water leads to a great dysfunction of the liver, and among the possible consequences are fibrosis, cirrhosis, and even the liver cancer. Most of the citizens are not even aware that they were afflicted since the disease is preceded in a latent form and no measures are being taken by the government to protect the nation. Additionally, a special attention should be brought to the human rights violations during the COVID-19 pandemic. Turkmenistan remains one of the two countries in the world which did not recognize the existence of virus. According to the reports from independent sources, the epidemic began in Turkmenistan as it usually was in the most neighboring countries in the spring and summer of 2020. In general, the situation did not vary in any way. People began to get sick, often with what at first seemed to be just a cold. But for many, this cold led to complications, often ending in death. Hospitals were overflowed and doctors were exhausted from the amount of daily work. Yet, since the beginning of the pandemic, the authorities started to intimidate citizens by not revealing any true information about the spread of the virus, and they even refrained from using the word coronavirus in all official statements. The government just chose to ignore the problem completely and forced people to silence about the disease. Moreover, the independent sources within the country that, of course, wished to remain unrevealed claimed that talking on the streets about the coronavirus could have resulted in detention, as law enforcement officers dressed in civilian clothes were entitled to control the information flow about the virus. At the same time, the authorities did took prompt measures that highly looks like quarantine measures. They stopped regular international flights, restricted movements between regions, obliged the populations to wear masks, and cancelled all kinds of mass events. But even explanations about the need for these measures was stated with extreme difficulty. The authorities claimed that the population supposedly should watch out the dust clouds from the dried Aral Sea and wear face masks to protect them from the air pollution. Subsequently, the name dust became the informal term of the coronavirus among the citizens of Turkmenistan. A total misinformation of the real situation in the country resulted in panic among the population. People were completely lost and had no idea how to resist violence, with, with that soon led to medicine and food shortages in the country. When the vaccination process finally began, another disturbing problem emerged. As conditions of vaccine storage were inappropriate, people were often vaccinated with spoiled drugs and died from the complications. According to our data from colleagues working on the ground, approximately 500,000 people died from COVID-19, yet no statistics is disclosed officially. The situation with human rights in Turkmenistan continues to exacerbate in all spheres of life, and deprives people of the right to enjoy the most basic freedoms essential for health functioning of the society. And actually, today's side events is a chance to address the cry of Turkmen society to the global community and find a necessary support of tackling an over-restrictive authoritarian regime in the country. I thank you.
Thank you, Diana, and thank you for bringing to us these important facts about the deterioration of the human rights in Turkmenistan. I would like now to give the floor to Emin Hosseino from the Institute for Reporters' Freedom and Safety, who is going to talk about the economic freedoms and the human rights in the country.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, I'm absolutely support all your previous statements and join. But I would like to focus attention on issues with corruption and economic freedom because it's main reason of the huge crackdown in Turkmenistan. And since Turkmenistan get his independence from as like one of the former post-Soviet Union countries, we didn't see any kind of peaceful or democratic like transition. Saparmurat Niyazov, which is died and delivered de facto his positions to Berdimuhamedov, Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov, make one of the most corrupted system in the world. It's according the Transparency International ranking, it's Turkmenistan staying on the 167 position. It's like one of the worst positions. I'm not from Turkmenistan, but I'm representative of the neighbor country. I'm from Azerbaijan. My personal background it's like investigate corruptions and how this affected to human rights. We have similar worse situation in our own country, but imagine compare. Sometimes we are discuss with colleagues with compare with Azerbaijan authoritarian regime. The regime in Turkmenistan is completely totalitarianism, which is based on control of all countries' good. And what Turkmenistan have? Turkmenistan have a 6.5 million population, and 40% or between 30 or 40% of the whole population living in exile, like in abroad, like they are working in most of them in Turkey, in the Russia. It's like working migrant, which is work on very difficult condition. But what Turkmenistan produces, like main product, it's gas, and that's why it's the biggest problem for Turkmen nations. The gas is because when you have a gas and we have your neighbors like Iran or Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, by Caspian Sea, you have a neighborhood with Russia and Azerbaijan, which is not like a democracy pioneers. You have lack of attention, and unfortunately, Turkmenistan have a quite unique situation because Turkmenistan also one of the members of the OSCE Organization of for Security and Cooperation in Europe, which is have at least implement many OSCE standards, which is and compare with 57 member states of OEC, it's worse situation with human rights and with corruption and with lack of the good governance is in Turkmenistan. And unfortunately, during the many years since Turkmenistan members of the OEC, we have less and less lack of attention of international community, and specifically now after war, um, Russian invasion to Ukraine, we see for many stakeholders in Europe start to talk about opportunities for them about regarding Turkmen's gas resources. And right now, with Turkish presidency leadership, like Erdogan, president of the Turkey, he tried to engage with the Turkmen government together with our president Ilham Aliyev, and they were working on idea to deliver Turkmen gas to Europe. And just recently, a few days ago, Viktor Orban, Prime Minister of the Hungary, he visited Turkmenistan. He met with Berdu Muhamedov Jr., which is current president, and with his son, which is shareholder of the state power with because it's, as you maybe most of you know, Turkmenistan have de facto two head of the states. One of the head of the state is son, and another person is Gurbanguly Berdu Muhamedov. He is head of the Halk Maslahat. He is like state council, like let's say. And these two persons responsible for everything, what is related with the economy, with the democratic functionality of democratic institution. And yeah, as my colleagues say, if it's no democratic institutions, and if we see our hope right now, since for government of Turkmenistan start to discuss about future cooperation with European stakeholders regarding the gas export, we try to use this event to make additional attentions to Euro-based stakeholders to say, guys, right now it's time and momentum to speak about human rights and speak about responsibilities of the business community. Because, yes, before many of our colleagues, and especially from, which is most of them working on issues with the cotton industry, as you know, for Turkmenistan, one of the, after Uzbekistan in the Central Asia, one of the leading exporter of the cotton. They are using like forced labor, and especially child labor. And yeah, quite often our colleagues during the UPR review, during the review in the Human Rights Committee and other treaty bodies, they remind to international community for about these issues. And we would try to make attention for, yes, right now, many people speaking about, like, especially, even if we compare with Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan have lack of attention even on these issues. And we didn't see lots of support, especially for civil society, which is working on these topics. To be honest, civil society in Turkmenistan survived. Most of my colleagues, and especially organizers, they are not able to come here because they have a lack of funding, the lack of attention, lack of solidarity. It's like what we see right now. We see some kind of selective solidarity. It's and especially on momentum when Europe starts to talk about gas, many high-level officials start to visit it. EU high-level officials started talking about interconnector via Caspian Sea, which is work prepared by the Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan. They are expected like dozens, billions of square meters of gas, Turkmen gas, in Europe in the upcoming future. But nobody talking about how this profit and benefits supposed to deliver like additional, like fundamental freedoms to people in Turkmenistan. And we try to say again, and we continue to support our colleagues for this is the main reason of this huge crackdown and lack of hopes. It's energy resources of Turkmenistan. And until we not able to create like some kind of watchdog mechanisms for Turkmen people, because inside the country, what we see, they destroyed all civil society, no civil society at all. Most of independence civil society representative working from exile, as like my colleagues from Prague, some colleagues based in different European cities. Many Turkmen outspoken voices based in, especially in Turkey, but unfortunately, Turkey is no more safe area for Turkmenistan citizens. Many of them illegally extradited to Turkmenistan. And for us, what we observe is like this community is like poor hostages, which is used by Erdogan regime to engage with Turkmen leadership regarding the potential gas deals to Europe. And Turkmenistan one of the biggest resources with gas in the world. I think on the fourth position. And but hope which is people have in let's say realistically hopelessness, which is what we observe in Turkmenistan, don't give any chance to this population for the future. And what we will see, Turkmenistan have also like a problematical neighborhood with Afghanistan, which is also make serious problem, because Turkmen leaders for last, let's say, 20 years saying to Europe, for look guys, we are some kind of a barrier for between Afghanistan and security problems, especially with Taliban regime. And we say for don't push us, we need strong like state security services. Don't ask us about human rights, but we would like to say to our European partners and stakeholders, especially to USA, to EU, for guys, if you think for like supporting authoritarian leaders like Berdimuhamedov, it make you safer, you are absolutely wrong. And Turkmenistan have huge territory with very small populations, and injustice with economic freedoms, especially people just don't have sometimes food to eat. Many people right now speaking about like North Korea dictatorship in some African regime, but Turkmenistan, it's unbelievably same. It's like one of the hugest problem with let's say tyranny of ruling regimes, and without international support, without especially support to Turkmenistan civil society in abroad, I think this country don't have any hopes. And my last call to all observers, and especially OEC member states, to UN members, like-minded states, for you have to think about sustainable long-term mechanism to support Turkmenistan civil society. Some countries say for if country don't have civil society inside, how we can support? And my response to this, look what you're doing in Belarus. After 2020, when Lukashenko destroyed civil society in Belarus, European leaders, they find like long-term mechanisms. They find political will to support Belarusian people, especially Belarusian opposition, Belarusian civil society in exile. And now it's time and momentum for Turkmen people. You have to find solution for them. You need to establish exile-based mechanisms and destroy this wall between exile-based community and community inside the Turkmenistan. And I thank you. And to be honest, and if you see to our room today, thanks for your attendance. But you see, for lack of attention, it's like our room. It's clear example what's going on with Turkmenistan, and it's 200 member states. Turkmenistan established diplomatic relation with 160 UN member states. And my question is, where is this member states? Maybe some of you guys diplomats, I'm so sorry, but if I want to count us like no more than 10 persons inside this room, but country like Turkmenistan is like big energy hub for at least big part of the world. For China, China has the responsibility. China have the biggest trade partnership with Italy, one of the close uh, partners of Turkmenistan government, like economic partners. Turkey, as I say, for Central Asian states, EU right now. And we try to make a lot more attention for the future, but unfortunately, we have what we have. And thanks for all of you for attending to our small side event. It's our first side event. Maybe it's also our problem with organizing this event. We're supposed to finish soon. And if any of you have questions, we will able to give you like emails and contact details of our main organizers, and you will communicate. They are based in Prague. They're operated from exile, and we are able to help you to engage with them. Thanks a lot, and Karina, please. If it's no question.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if you have any questions. Yeah, if not, thank you for attending today. It was, I think it wasn't useless in any ways to bring this to the attention of the people sitting here, and we will do our best to continue to work on this problem and to bring more awareness within UN. Thank you.
And we will publish this recording of this our side event to YouTube. Feel free to watch and share and subscribe to our channels in the social media. Thanks a lot, and especially thanks for UN office in Geneva to hosted us here during the Human Rights Council in Geneva. I wish our best to all Turkmen people inside the Turkmenistan and outside. And the human rights is not deal of the Turkmen people. We have to fight for human rights together. Human rights for all. Thanks.